Hello and welcome to The Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of The Gaggle, Peter Lavelle, host also of RT's talk show Crosstalk. Well, Peter, we already had occasion to speak about last week's events in Bosnia and Herzegovina, in which the holder of the office of the High Representative, a kind of a colonial position, Valentin Inzko, an Austrian, decreed that henceforth denial of genocide in Bosnia will be a crime punishable by prison. And prison is also what you get if you idolize war criminals, if you give any kind of awards to war criminals. And what was astonishing about that is that he, an unelected figure who has no connections whatever to Bosnia, can simply decree this, irrespective of any views of elected legislators, the public, and whatever. So now the Bosnian Serb politicians, Republika Srpska and the Muslim Croat Federation are the two entities that comprise Bosnia and Herzegovina. So anyway, the Republika Srpska, the politicians there said, we will now take no further part in any common political and governmental institution. So we're not going to take part in the presidency, we're not going to take part in parliament, we're not going to take part in government, so we're just boycotting all the institutions. So this absolute fiasco of a decision made, as I say, by an unelected person 25 years after the end of the war. And now Milorad Dodik, who's been around for a long time, he was the Republika Srpska representative on the presidency, he said, this is the beginning of the end of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Now, this may be a rhetorical flourish. You may just be issuing threats, but I do think that we have to take this quite seriously because the world has changed since the 1990s. I mean, 10, 15 years ago, if he had made this threat, NATO would have come down on him, say, hey, remember what we did to you back in the 90s? You want to get a taste of that medicine again? It's very hard to do this, and the Russians are quite firmly in the corner of the Republika Srpska. They made two statements already in the last few days in support of them. So, if the Bosnian Serbs do begin to disassociate themselves from Bosnia and Herzegovina, NATO's options may be a lot more limited than they were 20 years ago. All right, Peter, what was your take?
Well, I mean, again, 25 years after the conflict, and then this is a form of artificial external nation building, as if everybody is going to agree. I mean, anyone with any horse sense knows, why don't you leave it to them to decide that kind of issue? That's kind of touchy, don't you think?
Right.
And to make a blanket thing, it's like, no, that's exactly what you're going to do. Very colonial, very okay? And the viceroy spoke and all of that. I mean, the Serbs are... Personally, I think the whole project is a catastrophe. Actually, this is an opening for the Serbs. This is like the last thing. It's like, okay, I mean, you don't even have any common sense, and you want us to listen to you, okay? Because this is ridiculous. Okay, there are different legacies, different narratives, different histories. Okay, and we can talk about it for a very long time. Terrible things happen. But if you're going to get any kind of reconciliation, it's got to be on the ground, not on the way up. Okay, I mean, the Dayton Accords and all that can say that this is a process. Now, figure it out. Okay, right. No, there's kind of swoop in and tell the peasants what to do.
Right.
No, I'm not surprised by the reaction whatsoever, but it's very, very indicative of how the Dayton process was started, and it was pushed on and used military threats and all of that. Okay, I agree with you. It's going to be a lot tougher to sell this, because we don't agree with your law. You in Austria, you're gonna rev up NATO, really? Right. But there are people there, I mean, right. But I mean, what this tells me, and you knew it at the time, and you know this story much better than I do, is that, this was never going to be the end all be all resolution. We all knew that, okay? Right. And we're seeing it now.
Right. Well, the problem was almost from the beginning, which is the Western powers, were again very cynical and hypocritical. So that their first claim was, Yugoslavia can't possibly survive because it's a mixture of very different people with very different histories, different traditions. They can't possibly live together in a common state.
It did.
Yeah, and so we need to support the breakup of the Yugoslavia, which they did. And then they turned around almost the next day. Oh, but Bosnia and Herzegovina must survive, even though the three nations that comprised it really have absolutely, no interest in it, with the exception of the Muslims. But neither the Serbs nor the Croats had any interest in keeping the state of Bosnia going. But no, the Western powers said, no, we need this unitary state of Bosnia and Herzegovina. So we don't care about Yugoslavia's survival, but Bosnia must survive. And so, this is how they've been ramming this thing down everyone's throats, that this state has got to survive. But what's interesting is they seem to think that they can go on demonizing the Serbs without any consequences, which is after when they say about genocide and war crimes and so on, they're only always ever talking about the Serbs. I mean, because only the Serbs are deemed to have committed war crimes and above all committed genocide. And I just want to read something out of the report from the Associated Press, which is that in the immediate post-war years, the international community kept Bosnia on a reform course, pressuring its leaders to accept painful compromises in return for financial and other support. But over a decade ago, as the focus shifted onto other global crises, Bosnia was mostly left to its own devices. This has encouraged Bosnian Serb leaders, including Dodik, to increasingly call into question the country's continued existence and stoke ethnic tensions by downplaying or denying the crimes committed by their ethnic kin during the war. So notice the argument here. You are stoking ethnic tensions by denying your crimes. You are not stoking ethnic tensions by fingering the Serbs, accusing them of genocide and whatnot. That's not stoking ethnic tension. That's good. That's fine. But if you defend yourself, that's stoking ethnic tension. No, the mentality. That's the mentality of the media. It's also the mentality of NATO, the European Union, and above all, their flunky, this Inzko, the High Representative.
Yeah, it's very reminiscent of Sykes-Picot, sitting with a map, and it's like, we'll call this Iraq, we'll call this Syria here. Maybe Jordan, maybe trend. How does that sound? Okay, or think of in Versailles in 1919 in the map room. Okay, we got maps. We're going to this goes over here. And we're going to give this to this. That's exactly what this is. Okay, because you're forcing these communities to live together under conditions that are imposed upon you from somewhere, not just above, someone outside. Okay, right. And this, stoking ethnic tensions and all that. Well, at the end of the day, I have to tell the High Commissioner is that these are different nations and they have different traditions and identities, and they may or may not get along, but it's not for an outsider to make that decision. It's something that they're going to have to resolve. Right. All right. And again, I want to stress, George knows this history so much better than I do, but as far as the Serbs are concerned, okay, this experiment has been going on. It is going nowhere as far as we're concerned. And so everybody's playing pretend right now. So we're just going to pretend we're not part of it anymore, and we're going to get on with our lives. Okay. Right. And if you want to think otherwise, well, then you're going to have to make some decisions, and then we're going to have to make the decisions. Maybe you should cool your heels.
Right. No, that's right. I mean, what was interesting again by all these arbitrary decisions that the international community made, which was they said, okay, well, we will have a breakup along the lines of the individual republics, much as it was in the USSR. But those administrative boundaries must now become international frontiers. No changes. So this is going to be the state of Croatia as it was drawn up by the communists. This is going to be the state of Bosnia and Herzegovina as drawn up by the communists. This is going to be the state of Serbia as drawn up by the communists. And then they changed their position. When we said Serbia should remain as it was drawn up, we didn't actually mean that. I think Serbia should lose Kosovo. So, boom, that whole principle that these administrative boundaries should be international frontiers, that was gone by the wayside. Now, if what should be the logical step, namely that the Republic of Srpska joined Serbia into a common state, which is basically what they want. if that happened, that might at least pave the way to a solution in Kosovo, because the Serbs might say, all right, we'll give up Kosovo if we at least get this part. We get the Republic of Srpska. But no, oh, we can't possibly do it. No changes, no changes at all. So we're just back into this point.
What? Why? Why?
Why?
Why? Self-determination. There's this artificial border. My kindred, my family members live over there. I can walk the distance. I can see them, but there's an international border here. Really?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I mean, this is very much akin to what we have with Lugansk and Donetsk bordering Russia. I mean, before the official Kiev started shelling them, people crossed that border every single, there was no border in their mind. I'm going to work, honey. Oh, by the way, I'm going to pass an international border. And there was no control.
If you remember back in the 90s, remember there was a whole hysteria about Serbia is helping the Bosnian Serbs, they're providing them with assistance. And you think, well, what do you expect? I mean, the same people, as you say, they're family members. They are going to provide them with assistance. So it's okay for NATO to intervene. They have no connection with Yugoslavia. It's also okay for people like Richard Holbrooke to bring in all these Islamists to fight on behalf of the Muslims. That's okay. But my God, Serbs are helping their fellow countrymen. I never heard of anything so outrageous.
Helping Bosnian Serbs. I don't think any Serb calls himself a Bosnian Serb. No one does. It's an artificial term.
Totally artificial. Completely artificial. I mean, that's the whole point. It was artificial. Exactly. People thought of themselves as Serbs, Croats, and Muslims. I mean, that was Yugoslavia created the nation of Muslims. So Tito wanted to kind of break it all up, and so he deemed the Muslims a nation, which to this day no one understands why he did that.
Well, I mean, the interesting irony, and we'll finish with this here, is that they were so much coddled and cared for the Muslims of Herzegovina, and then look what they did to the Muslim world right after it. Okay, it's really quite amazing.
It is quite amazing, exactly. These are the Muslims we love. We absolutely love the Muslims of Bosnia and the Muslims of Kosovo. About other Muslims, Muslims in Palestine, well, they can go to hell. The Muslims of Libya, forget that.
You can look at the memoirs and of people that were involved in this, and it was just a pathological hatred of Serbs. It was, look at Madame Albright. I mean, she simply hated her. I mean, it was pathological. She couldn't explain it. Yeah. They're just bad, evil people.
Bad, evil people. Holbrooke as well. I mean, it was just simply, when he testified openly in the Senate, he just called them bastards. I mean, that's what he said. He just called them bastards. I mean, that was, it's very reminiscent of the way it's acceptable to talk about Russians. When Clapper talked about, what was it in the Russian DNA? I forgot. Lying and deceit.
Devious liars. Or something.
That was fine. And people used to talk exactly in these terms about the Serbs. They're just subhuman. They're savages. So whatever we do to them, they deserve. So it's a kind of racism that liberals engage in, but it's permissible because, hey, you're being racist about the bad guys, and that's okay.
Just behave yourselves. Talk like we want you to talk, and we'll throw you some crumbs and maybe EU membership, okay? And it's just like,
not this week, not next month, not next year, but down the road.
You're on the list. Okay, you're on the list with Turkey.
You're on the list.
All right, everybody. I'm glad George wanted to talk about this. This is very, very important because, again, it shows how this misreporting in the media, it's very stilted. Enemies are created out of whole cloth for no reason whatsoever. And then, a rules-based order, somehow, where does it fit? I don't know. But there's one thing that's been around for a while. It's called self-determination. So why do the Bosnians get it, but the Serbs don't?
Right.
Food for thought.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, everybody, we're on Locals, so please go to thegaggle.locals.com. We're doing one-on-one Zoom calls with gagglers. We also have the store up, the Gaggle store. I talked to Kira earlier today. We have some new items coming up, really cool. And we did our first Q&A, which was a really good, really interesting,
really good, really excellent. And already new questions are accumulating. So I'm looking forward to our next Q&A.
And we're gonna have some live streaming. Both well, we'll do it separately on Locals, but George and I will be back in business on YouTube doing a live streaming.
Probably next week. Yeah.
Well, I always forget this last thing.
The last thing is the tip jar, which is you know, resonating with emptiness. So we need, you know, sounds hollow. So it needs to have a different.
You can hear the ocean in it.
Exactly, it needs to have a duller thud sound to it. So yeah, so we really, you know, could use some help there. So whatever you can do would be most appreciated. We don't have billionaires to support us, so we rely on the kindness of strangers. And remember, if you like the Gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.